I was like,
well, we've almost made it. Thank you all so much for being here, whether that was for one presentation or for 2 straight days. It's been so great to celebrate these amazing projects all together. We have one project left for you. Our final presenter of the 2024 MLA cohort is Katie Sinclair. Some highlights of her time in the MLA program include working as an assistant on the land lab with Michael Gethold, fostering a love of creating physical models thanks to the guidance of David Buckley Gordon, who unfortunately couldn't be here today but is with us in spirit, and of course making many lifelong friends. After graduation, Katie will be staying in Eugene and working full-time at the Stafford Group, where she interned in the summer of 2023. Her project, #InstaStructure, designing for Instagram to protect local ecologies, is going to round out our talks for the day. So please,
She should have stepped out to use the restroom.
Oh gosh. For a minute, I guess.
You all want to hear an actual story. Okay, I can do that. The nerves are high as Jane and Joseph drive to the Antelope Valley, California Poppy Reserve. This is one of their first dates and will prove to be an influential one. Jane suggested they go because she had heard about it from one of her friends who said it was gorgeous. She loves wildflowers and hopes Joseph finds them captivating as well. Joseph is excited because he really likes Jane and wants to show interest in what she's passionate about. As they travel down the long approach to the parking lot, they can see that this is a good year for the poppies. Their jaws drop. When they get out of the car, Jane suggests they look at the park map to decide where they want to go. Both agree on the Katanamak Vista Point, along a half-mile trail with 170 feet of elevation gain. Walking down the trail, Jane is interested in every different wildflower. They take note as to how thick the flowers are with little bare earth in sight. Jane looks over at Joseph, and he is gazing out over the vast expanse of wildflowers. She can see wonder in his eyes. Joseph feels his hand tingle as Jane reaches to hold it. They squeeze in tandem, knowing that they have found something special with each other and with this reserve. Jane and Joseph are now married with 2 children. Jane is an ecologist studying wildflowers, and Joseph is a roadside pollinator biologist. #influenced by their date. Their children, Elise and Cody, are 5 and 7. They are about to have their first visit to the Antelope Valley, California Poppy Reserve as a family. On the drive to the Poppy Reserve, Jane explains to the children the importance of the native California poppies, Schultzia californica. She explains that besides being California's state flower, they play a role in the diversity of native California wildflowers, provide soil stabilization, and many different pollinators visit them. Jane also encourages them to look for other flowers like lacy phacelia, pygmy-leaved lupin, or goldfields. To help with identification, she provides some photos. Joseph continues by adding that California poppies are visited by native bumblebees, mining bees, sweat bees, and several varieties of syrphid flies. still beneath the surface getting crushed. The children nod in agreement because they both like flowers and wouldn't want to hurt them. The family checks out the map to see if anything has changed. John notices that not much has been updated apart from the added fencing, a new ADA paved trail, and more signs. Before the children got too #squirrely, Jane notes that it's not just her enforcing the rule of staying on the trail. It is in fact the first rule listed on the map. Elise and Cody agree with their mom, then the 4 of them head out on the trail. During their time at the Poppy Reserve, the children experienced the same excitement and awe their parents first had. They remark on all of the pretty colors, open views. All in all, it's like Jane and Joseph just visited yesterday, but they got to see the site through the joyous lens of their children. Years later, Elise and Cody are now teenagers. One day, Jane suggests that the whole family take a trip back to the reserve. Both Elise and Cody groan because they are way too cool to go on a road trip with their parents. But when Jane places a photo album in front of them from when they were there last, floods of sensory memories come racing back. The sight of neon orange, the sound of the wind blowing across the landscape, and the smell of sagebrush. The kids finally agree to go back to experience that place again. Driving down the entry road, they first notice the abundance of cars. The parents are pleased to see that more people are there to appreciate the reserve and the poppies. Elise and Cody look at each other in concern, for they have suspicions as to why more people are there. After they finally find a parking spot in the overflow parking, they all solemnly get out of the car, not uttering a single word. Slowly, the parents start walking their normal trail, and Elise and Cody follow suit. What they see is heartbreaking. Even the kids aren't prepared for this, though they have seen some photos that were posted on Instagram. Groups of people are walking off trail, and even where they don't see anyone directly, there is evidence in bare patches and user trails stemming from the main path. That year had good rainfall for the poppies to germinate, but that didn't matter with the impact of people walking wherever they could to get a good photo. When the family got back in the car to go home, the kids explained. With the rise of social media and Instagram, trends have developed where people go out to take photos with nature that mimic other posts. #influencers. The parents could understand that, but what they couldn't understand was the way in which they were doing it. They didn't need to walk or lay all of the flowers to get good photos of them. Feeling disappointed, they vowed to never go back, for their beautiful reserve had been destroyed. At the same time the family was leaving the reserve, 2 friends, more than 2,000 miles away in Pittsburgh, decided to take a road trip. Paige and Emily have seen on Instagram all of the amazing photos taken at the reserve, and they want in on the action too. #influenced. They decided to make a full trip of it, stopping at many large or small Instagrammable spots along the way, using what they have seen from people they follow as a guide. They stopped at places like national parks, local parks that are doing their best to appeal to Instagram, and of course, Instagram museums, places that are designed for the gram. These are the most fun because Paige and Emily find a sense of community with strangers who are there for the same reason. And let's face it, they get some great photos. When they finally arrive at the reserve, it did not disappoint. After walking location on the trail for some photos. A few shots later, they realized that if they could only get a few feet into the flowers, they could frame the view so much better. They gaze down at the poppies, look around at what other people are doing, and discern that only a few feet off trail is not too harmful. Years pass again. Elise and Cody are both off at college, enjoying their time and making many friends. One spring, a friend of Elise's shares an Instagram post that was taken at the reserve, but she didn't recognize what she saw. Curious about it, she calls her brother to see if he has seen or heard anything. He hadn't. The photo appears to show more poppy emergence than their last visit and a strange structure off in the distance. Interested to see it in person, they make a plan to visit together during spring break. This plan includes convincing their parents to go with them. While Jane and Joseph wanted to see their children, they did not want to go to the reserve again for fear of the further destruction they might see. Jane especially is still heartbroken from their last visit. After several persuasive calls from both Cody and Elise, Jane and Joseph agreed to visit the reserve again. On the drive in, the nerves are high for Jane and Joseph, just like their first date. But these are not excited nerves, they are apprehensive nerves. Elise and Cody are a little nervous, but also hopeful about what they might see. When they get close enough to the hills on the reserve, they notice that it actually is a good year for the poppies. Even from that distance, they could see more poppies than the last time. Turning onto the entry drive, their eyes are drawn to a large structure on the hill they know to be Katana Mephisto Point. A lot has changed. After parking, they walk up to the kiosk to see the updated reserve map. Immediately, they notice a trail that has existed previously, but is now renamed Insta Trail, and appears to have several stations with different names. Both Jane and Joseph don't really want to know what that's about. So they decide to travel a different familiar loop around the west side of the site. It didn't take the family long to see that there is an abundance of flowers and very little evidence of off-trail travel. Jane and Joseph look at each other in amazement and question how this could happen given the previous visit. Elise and Cody indicate that it probably has something to do with the Insta Trail. With their curiosity piqued, the family make their way to the interpretive center to find out. At the same time Elise and Cody were persuading their parents to visit the reserve again, Paige and Emily have been keeping tabs on the reserve over the last few years. It made such an impression on their last visit. They have seen many photos posted by people they follow. Feeling left out, it's time to visit again to experience the new developments on the reserve. While the family walks to the interpretive center, Paige and Emily also arrive at the reserve, find a parking spot, and walk directly to the Insta Trail entrance. They know exactly what they're there for. Paige and Emily want to experience everything this new trail has to offer and take photos at each station. As they pass through the trail entry, which is two reflective chrome poppy sculptures framing the trail, they look ahead. What they can barely see at the top of the hill is the pinnacle of the trip, the icing on the cake, the windmill. But first, only about 60 feet from the entrance, they arrive at the station called Flower Fields Forever. This station features wooden raised planter beds with trails that are modestly graded for navigating between the beds to give the illusion being immersed in the flowers. The sunken trail also gives the illusion of floating through the landscape. Emily walks onto the smaller trails to pose when she notices a glint out of the corner of her eye. At a closer look, she realizes that there are delicate metal inlays in the wood of the planter that reflect the color of the plants, and takes a moment to appreciate the detail. Before Paige starts taking photos, Emily asks her to make sure she includes that metal detail. As they make their way to the next station, they notice something far off trail that is quite taller than the flowers, even taller than them, but looks very similar to a poppy flower. After a few blinks, they realize that it's like the entryway flowers, but clearly they aren't meant to get closer because of the simple metal barrier bordering the trail. That's interesting, especially because it's all alone. Paige thinks it's a cheeky tease, not allowing them to get close to it. Further along the trail are small, elevated platforms that are nestled into the flowers. This illusion is achieved through subtle grading beneath the platforms to bring the platform to the same level as the flowers. Paige notices right away that there is similar detailing in the wood as the planters, but they don't quite know what it's representing. Regardless, they think it's stunning. This time, Paige lays down on the platform and Emily stands over her to get her photo. They both think it's incredible that the platform mostly disappears when someone lays down. It's as if the person is laying amongst the flowers. They continue up the trail and again see something glinting. There's a theme here. As they get closer, Emily realizes that what they are seeing is a trash can that is completely reflective. In agreement, Emily and Paige comment that this is the coolest trash can they've ever seen and proceed to take a selfie in it. Just across the trail is a shade structure with a few tables and benches, but inside is glowing orange. As they approach, they see why. The roof is reflective, with an orange poppy painted on it. But the glow isn't just coming from the painted poppy. The roof is angled, so it's reflecting the orange color of the poppy bloom adjacent to the structure. Paige and Emily enter the structure, look up, take a selfie in the roof's reflection. 100 feet up the trail, they start to see movement. Threaded through delicately inlaid posts are twisted strips of fabric that capture the winds perfectly. The posts are mounted in a row on either side of the trail, guiding them further along. Paige thinks this is a perfect opportunity for Emily to walk ahead on the trail. Paige beautifully frames Emily between the posts. The photo has so much movement between the fabric and Emily's hair flowing in the wind. Just after the fabric and posts end, there is a curve in the trail, and then another row of posts and fabric. As they turn the corner, they see another person posing and quickly step back to remove themselves from the shot. They comment on how smart the turn in the trail is. It allows two groups to take photos at the same time without interfering with each other. The difference here is, off in the distance, they see a post with a strange box mounted on top. The group they almost interrupted is using it. After waiting their turn, Emily approaches and sees a sign explaining how to use this interesting contraption. There is, in fact, a holder for a phone and a strap to ensure the camera is centered on the viewing scope. Once a phone is in place, the handles on the side allow have her tilting and swiveling to stage the image perfectly. She sees that it gives a neat kaleidoscope frame to everything. After playing with it for a couple minutes, she tells Paige to stand on the trail between the second set of posts. The photo turns out to be a psychedelic combo of the colored fabric and the kaleidoscope frame, not to mention all the colors of the poppies. On the other side of the trail, they see another chrome flower. Then they pass another scope. There is a moment of realization that because this is a larger landscape, the elements of interest can blend together and interact more seamlessly compared to an Instagram museum where each room is discrete. Emily is starting to like this better. They continue another 200 feet or so to a flat area in the terrain where another set of shade structures and trash cans are located. Once they pass those structures, they see the windmill much more clearly now, and Paige and Emily look ahead in excitement. As they excitedly hurry towards the windmill, suddenly they are surrounded by a super bloom of chrome poppy sculptures. In awe, they finally understand that the other poppy sculptures off trail were hinting to this moment all along. This is photo-worthy for sure. Finally, they are on their way to the windmill. It is everything they hoped it would be. The windmill is the most popular location on the trail given Instagram posts they've seen. They approach the spiral staircase where each stair is shaped like a petal. As Paige and Emily walk up, every third step is larger and has similar metal detail as the previous stations. They realize that this windmill contains a culmination of the detail from every other station. After seeing those graphics together, Paige and Emily now understand that they represent different stages of poppy growth. Once they get to the horizontal windmill representing the final flower bloom, there is a QR code with information on the California poppy, including an explanation of the inlaid details. And of course, they take a selfie with the windmill petals. Hashtag so much orange, but never too much. On their way back down the steps, they find an open platform and take turns taking photos of each other on the platform, sitting, leaning, and standing. They covered all their bases. They see other people taking photos of their feet dangling off the platform, but Paige and Emily decide against that one. Before heading back down, Emily tells Paige to walk on the path a bit first. Where Emily is standing on the windmill, she can see Paige across the landscape on the trail. Emily got a nice photo of Paige with all the flowers in the distance and the mountains in background. While Paige and Emily are having fun on the Insta Trail, the family is in the interpretive center. When they enter, Jane inquires about the reasoning and origin of the new trail. The nice park stewards at the desk said, "Why don't you ask the designer herself?" A figure emerges from the room behind the desks and says, "Hello, my name is Katie. I heard you had some questions about background the trail." Well, I'm happy to tell you all about it. Like you and many others, I started to notice an increase in attendance to beautiful, sensitive areas like this one. outside enjoying nature and taking photos of it is not inherently bad. In fact, I encourage it. But many of them don't know what they're doing is harmful. They may visit an Instagram museum designed for Instagram where they can do what they want with the space, then treat the outdoors the same way. I wanted to use the idea of Instagram museums and translate that to an outdoor environment. This would perform multiple purposes. One, provide an outlet for influencers and influencees to safely interact with nature that protects local ecologies. Two, concentrate influencers and influencees to a specific area so not to interfere with others. And three, allow them to still get #SickAF content. So that's a bit about why I did it. Intrigued? Intrigued, Jane asked about the process and how one would start research for something like this. Katie continues. The process was more involved, but I'll be brief. I first started by finding trends on Instagram. It is a highly visual platform, so finding common images that were being recreated was key. To do that, I used data scraping software to find the most common hashtags used for photos taken outside. From there, I looked at the photos associated with those hashtags to create what I call 12 Instagram typologies. There are many, many more than this, but I thought 12 would be sufficient for this project. Next, finding a site to apply what I conceptually created brought me back to data scraping. Through hashtags and geolocations of the images, the Antelope Valley California Poppy Reserve is very popular. Given some images posted and knowing the park rules, it needed a bit of help. After analyzing the typology images by looking at ecological concerns, camera distance to subject, key image elements, and photo composition, I looked at my original typologies and discerned which ones would be appropriate for the reserve specifically. A few, but not all, include flower fields forever, road most traveled, which in my case is translated to trail most traveled, and finished, because there wasn't an attractive opportunity for this before the windmill structure. Visiting the site, remote site analysis, and of course, talking with the informative park stewards, I was able to start the design process. After several design iterations of each intervention, I created what you see here on site now. A trail with 6 new landscape interventions, plus a couple retrofitted elements, designed specifically for this reserve to address 5 of the original 12 typologies. Time will tell how successful it is. My hope is that this concept is adopted other places. Now, unfortunately, that's all I have time for. I must run to a presentation, but thanks for stopping by. The family thanks her and she returns to the back room from where she came. Meanwhile, Paige and Emily are exhilarated with the photos they have from the reserve. They think back and wish more places were like this. Paige likes the variety the trail has to offer. It has both areas that hide the structures and areas that celebrate the structures. Emily likes the reflective surfaces that provide many opportunities for unique images. Finally, it hits both of them as they look back on photos to post that there are more flowers this year compared to last time. photos this year are more stunning and vibrant. The photos they just posted are already getting likes and comments, asking if there are more places like this to visit. Feeling satisfied and intrigued at the same time, Jane, Joseph, Elise, and Cody start to walk back to the parking lot. Jane's mind is especially active. Thoughts like, is this really all that needs to happen to protect sensitive ecological areas like this from overuse? Thoughts that include how this could work other places. She figures influencers just need the proper outlet, and these interventions can celebrate the site while simultaneously protecting it. Before reaching their vehicle, they pass near the entrance of the Insta Trail. They all pause and look pleased as they gaze at the two entry flowers. Jane insists that they at least get a photo together as a family between the entry flowers. Elise asks another visitor to take their photo. As a family, they decide that is enough for this trip. Maybe they will experience the Insta Trail next time. Off in the distance, Paige and Emily walk back to their car, pleased with the experience. As both parties drive home, there is a sense of contentment, a feeling that this is the beginning of something good in the world that can make a difference in many ways. Yes, so I just wanted to say thank you to specifically these people. David Buckley Gordon, I don't know, is he on? That's okay. Yeah, David Buckley Gordon, my advisor with this project, really helped me keep it going and really encouraged me to go with this unorthodox presentation. Of course, our project committee, Ellie Stapleton, thank you so much for bringing us through this last term, bringing us home. Corey Russell and Nick Gong also, specifically Jean Yang, who helped inspire this concept, this topic, my first year here. Michael Geffel, thank you so much for allowing me to put my prototype, that's it, I can reveal it, but my prototype out on the Land Lab, which will be continuing. And Ignacio for helping me with some Instagram stuff and sending me inspo. Of course, all the UO and LA staff and faculty, both MLA and the BLA cohorts. I really do feel like all of us have become a family over the last years. And of course, my parents who are here, Kim and Brian, thank you for having me. And Tim and Lisa Meissen, Tobias folks, thank you so much for housing me and feeding me my first year here. Thank you everyone on Zoom. You can't really see, but that's okay. And of course, my wonderful husband, Tobias Meissen.
Well, we can take some questions from the room, or I guess if anybody wants to go up and look at the prototype. I just shocked you on the silence. Jenny.
I really feel like I just went on a journey, and it's really incredible. Such a great presentation. I think it's an issue that, I've seen, lots of people have seen. see, and in my own mind, it kind of stopped there. I was like, oh God, how are we ever going to address that? Like, people are just doing all these crazy things. And then it stopped there for me, so it's really amazing to see this progression and really taking that and really like moving forward and looking at solutions and well done.
Thank you. Yes.
Katie, what was the hardest or most difficult part of your research?
Probably narrowing it down to which typologies I wanted to look at. So with the data scraping, I would search one hashtag, and every other hashtag that was associated with those would pop up. And from each of the scrapes that I did, I just decided to take a sample size of 1,000. So that would produce the 1,000 posts that were associated with that hashtag, and then would look at those images. And sorting through all of that was a lot. It was a lot of Excel spreadsheets and a lot of Instagram posts to look at. So yeah, that was probably narrowing it down to those 12. And then after that, I had to then narrow it down to what was just going to be worked with on the reserve, specifically after Joseph.
You're getting a lot, as is fitting, I guess, lots of comments. Let's see. Folks who I'm guessing are family and friends. Greg says amazing job. Thomas says way to go, Katie. Victoria says so great. Mark says hashtag parents forever young. And hashtags popular. And also thanks Katie, such a clever presentation approach and insightful.
Yeah, sorry to people on Zoom who didn't get to witness this whole theatrical. Phoebe.
I'm frankly amazed at how the photos turned out because I know where we took those photos.
You know where we were.
It's amazing. Good job.
Thank you. I love the little dots at the bottom. I was watching them like an Instagram gallery, and
All the dots and the little arrows.
with the meaning was
Yep.
really immersive for me, and I just think all those little special touches really
Yeah, so the dots and the arrows, yeah.
just show kind of like, reflect the care that you put into this entire project. It's just wonderful, wonderful job.
Beautiful family too.
Sarah.
Just going off of what Catherine said, you just so seamlessly integrated those classic landscape architecture pieces into this like Instagram model. So you just had those sections and plans and the regrading and the perspectives. So it was never a question of like the classic, is this landscape architecture? Like you were like throughout the entire presentation, like pulling that through like a thread so seamlessly. So just a compliment. Yeah.
There's a question on Zoom. Has this project had any effect on how you experience hiking adventures?
Oh, that is a great question. Unfortunately, because this project takes up so much time, I have not been on many hiking adventures since I really started this project, but yes, well, most definitely I will, because, guilty as charged, and when you step off the trail and find out what you get the photo, probably won't be doing that anymore. Yeah.
Well, I guess we can hand it over to our faculty reviewers.
Well, first off, Katie, I didn't know you had a background in theater.
My
that
parents
never-
will tell you otherwise.
I don't know how that didn't come up, although I have a lot of photos of you at the Land Lab with a big smile and laughing, and so this makes perfect sense, of course. But yeah, I think this narrative is so creative and so fun to follow through, and I think that reflects a lot about you. And I guess I just kept on thinking about how much we have to learn about human behavior
Oh,
in
yes,
this field.
yes, yes, yes.
It's not something I went into like grad program thinking that that was one of our skill sets, but I think it's fascinating and really incredibly useful to be able to mine this big data to find out how people are using space, where people are posting, what these technologies are. So I think that is just going to continue to inform how you design, because now you can look at some posting and seeing what can happen when like spring games happens at the land lab, and all of a sudden there's like a 10-foot wide trail that the herd cut through. And then it also made me think a lot about how our national parks and a lot of our natural areas are effectively urbanizing in a really interesting way, where there are now these high densities of people concentrated in very remote locations, and a lot of times the solution has been more engineering, more landscape architecture to create these smaller environments which are really similar to city landscapes or urban landscapes that we are used to. So I think that this is a really great contribution in studying some different strategies for dealing with that. One comment for your portfolio: you got to design the benches and the garbage can. Just everything. You have the full product line. But you need the full product line. Contact, landscape forms, and yeah, exactly.
Or vestry.
Right. And pitch it with your proposal in exactly the same fashion.
In the same exact way.
Well done. Congratulations.
Yeah, this was super fun. I think this is a perfect presentation to be the last.
Yes, we all decided that.
Yeah, your wonderful cohorts and this fun engagement at the end. I think this was amazing presentation. And when I heard about your project in fall, I thought it was really interesting and exciting project. And it's great to see that how it really came up.
No, from my sparkly shirt to the.
Yeah. You also did similar thing for the picture presentation in fall.
Yeah, it was,
You
well, I
changed
just.
your clothes.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that sparkly shirt on.
I thought that was a one-time thing, and then it wasn't. you have a maybe career in here. And I think, even behind the scene of this engagement presentation, the analysis that you did, I think that's a really valuable contribution. Really looking at what kind of people are looking at this kind of, Instagram, sites, their behavior, and incorporating that into your design. I think that was really fascinating. I was wondering if you documented your process more detail in your master project.
Yes, so, yes, and for the booklet, we'll have more of that.
Yeah. Because I think for presentation, this was great.
Right.
In addition, having the document, I think that can be really powerful and
Yeah.
a really complete piece of environmental communication guideline for Instagram, and especially like places like in South Korea, so many people, are influenced by Instagram, and we use this so many these Insta structures all over. Really big picture, like it's crazy. And, so I think it's a very let's find out also how you can disseminate this work through Instagram, your hashtags. Yeah, how you can really tell your messages of this environmental conservation through design. So yeah, I do that.
This is the first time you see this? And,
I know. I kept trying to ooh, and you're like, no, I don't want to see it.
I wanted to be surprised. But it's kind of crazy, like how much work. Like this is an exercise of like distilling all your creativity and skills and knowledge into something that you wanted to show, right? But it's like Jacob is saying, there's so much work and there's so many skills that are behind this that is kind of like David, right? Like eventually everything that he shows is just like the treat, but how much work it takes just to develop that treat, right? Yeah, and I think that's an example, like for those who don't know, like Katie is an exceptional student. She's been like doing great in every class, and I'm glad you had fun at the very end and being able to just like go against the normal narrative of the plastic architecture final project, because yeah, this is more you and you should be proud of pulling it off, because I don't think that anyone can do this like what you do.
I just wanted to note, in addition to this being super fun, that as you were talking, I had this funny flashback to, I think, my first year in the MLA program, listening to Bart Johnson, who was the ecology professor here for many years, Professor Emeritus Bart Johnson, talk about his research when he was getting his MLA and his work on rock specialist plant species and preventing the trampling of these species in, I think it was Georgia or North Carolina. And so basically it was people, you know, climb these mountains and then they assume that it's better for the plants if they like walk on the rocks rather than on plants, but it turns out that in that area there are these very rare clusters of plant species that only live on the rocks because after the last ice age, as the plant ranges had contracted, they were in these very limited clusters, and so it was actually trampling very specifically these endangered plants. And so his whole MLA project was thinking about, and this was probably in the 80s, sometime before Instagram, long before Instagram, he's thinking about how you design to prevent the trampling of these sensitive rock specialist species. And I thought it was such a cool, your project is like this totally modern spin on that same idea, and I just thought that was like a very cool lineage for an environment.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have to ask, because growing up in California, I was told when I was very young that it was illegal to pick poppies because they are an escape flower. So seeing those photos of people,
I know.
I'm like, jail. Is it actually illegal, or is that just something that like my parents told me? Make sure I didn't.
One way to do it.
Yeah, right.
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay, we'll have to
But when
look.
I visited the site, I asked
Mhm.
the stewards there and the interpreter center.
Yeah.
Did that.
Yeah.
I asked them, I was like, you know, so what's the issue with walking off trail? And I've seen other photos of clearly not on the site, but the little geotag was the site,
Oh.
but very clearly not on the site because they were linear, like linear fields that looked like they were planted.
Yeah.
And they were actually like in them and like
Yeah.
on their own. And I asked about that, and basically they were like, a few years ago there was a location just off the reserve that did have those like planted areas where people could. And what the park steward said was, anywhere off the reserve, people can do whatever they want. It's just on the reserve.
Yeah.
They don't want that happening to preserve the poppies. And I was like, okay, well that makes sense, but that's also rude.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, congratulations, Kate. Thank you for rounding us out.
One last thing. So I think our cohort is going to be going out to the land lab to take a drone photo with Ignacio, and I will be bringing the prototype out. If you would like to experience it in person, come out to the land lab.
It's very cool.
Anyways, last.
Can we have a moment to acknowledge like all the people that have been part of like this year sequence, right? Starting with like Yakan, following Corey. I don't know if Corey's still there. I think he's celebrating his wife Jenner in a bar. Yeah. And last but not least, Ellie, being in the department, and I think she has just like killed it. Yeah, she killed it, and I mean they talk, right? All the students are like you're amazing. And I think the amazing like consistency of like all the storytelling has been the result of like you giving that extra love at the end, where they were the most needed, right? So yeah,
Yes.
congratulations.